All right.
Okay.
Hey, buddy.
Here we are again, Smithy. Another fantastic opportunity to share some of the noise, the news, and some of the issues that have been raised this month.
Totally.
And not as upwardly as exciting as normal, buddy. Um, we had, for all those that are aware, there's been the announcement of the federal budget, and that prompted a call out from the CEO of Volunteer Australia, reflecting on that, and especially about the fact that now is a critical a time to invest in the future of volunteering. Unfortunately, the federal budget didn't allow too much fat in that for the volunteer sector, certainly not in relation to any new funding initiatives to help Volunteer Australia deliver their new 10-year strategy. So, yeah, not real good news, mate, but, wherever there is bad news, there is opportunity, right?
Always, always. And I think the key there is that, we had a cyclone kick off another critical incident up on the Gold Coast and Queensland.
As we
And the
did.
statements around that, well, you lived and breathed it. I didn't.
Yeah,
You went out of action. We're behind on this this session alone because you were out for a week, right? Anyway.
yeah. We don't have time to diversify today, but yeah, 5 days of blackout led to a welcome back to 3,629 emails to respond to
Yes,
in
yes,
that
yes,
period
yes.
of time.
But the point is that we keep on seeming to bring the attention of the importance of volunteerism up when there's a major crisis.
Mm,
We forget easily that there are major crises happening every day in every community across Australia and globally,
yeah,
and that there are a group of volunteers that are always steadfast in their protection of their organisations and the communities that they serve. Um,
sure.
what it shows to me, to be frank, mate, is that if government ain't going to step in, then it's us, the constituents, the people in our communities, the private sector organisations that need to look at this as one of the most important components of who we are as a society moving forward, particularly with digitisation and AI and all of these super big things that are coming, to step up and say, hey, we can add value and we can put our time, energy, skills, capabilities and the like
Yeah.
towards that task and that purpose.
Yeah, look, and I think, as you rightly point out, the private sector's got to really understand that, and volunteers are customers like anybody else. They are, consumers like anybody else. Um, and so it's all well and good for private sector on one hand to want revenue and profit and gain. And there's a lot of private, don't get me wrong, a lot of private sector are fantastic contributors to
Oh,
the
huge,
volunteering sector.
huge. Yeah.
What we've tried to do, for all those that know, we've just tried to model that to make it an easy and efficient way for both parties, those stakeholders, to say, let's get together. I mean, society is a big collaboration, right? And we either collaborate effectively or we don't. But you're right, and it's one of those things, Smithy, too, that, what we've realised, we had a call out up here through our church organisation, again, for, the mud army type relief that, the last time that we had the Lismore floods, there was 15,000 people that had never volunteered before that were all, in gumboots with shovels pushing mud out of people's houses they didn't even know. But if the government continues to take this position without that funding of the sector in general, that those 227,000 orgs that you said are going to start to struggle, then they don't exist. And then there doesn't have to be a natural disaster for our communities to suffer. The non-existence of a lot of those organisations creates a crisis. And
It's case in point, mate. Case in point. I sit on a committee. We have well in excess of 1,000 to 2,000 players of tennis in our area. Tennis being one of those sports that's available to all ages, genders. It's an important part of a dynamic in a community sport, as is scouts, surf lifesaving. They're all important, mate.
yeah,
Now, our organisation, centres around a few people, and if those people leave, and we don't get the capable set that sits behind us, there's a
yeah,
diminishing capability of delivery to community. Our local council, and I won't name, wanted to change leases, non-consultative approach, bump the
yeah,
leases up. No conversation.
yeah.
no discussion, bump the leases up. Who gets to deal with that? Well, the PTA gets to deal with that. Why? Because our clubs don't have the capacity, skill sets, or capability to do that themselves. So there's one really pertinent, close to home scenario
Yeah,
of
right.
exactly what you said. We start to shift and shape down, then who picks up the pieces? Who does that? And so what is the impact? Is that a bigger impact in the forecast than a cyclone?
Yeah.
I'm feeling it's a much, much bigger forecast issue that we're facing here, mate.
Yeah, look, and I'm not going to draw a direct line of comparison, but one of the reasons that we started on this journey with Firefly in the first instance that we'd noticed that there was a downturn in 1 million volunteers over the last decade.
Well,
Yeah, if you also look at that, Smithy, we've had 3 changes in government in that last decade. And it seems to be, relative to the greater community, very short-sightedness not to think about what's the next 10 years going to look like. So you imagine, and you know what happens, and not referring to our volunteer community as sheep in any way, shape, or form, but when you start to get an exodus, you get to start the people follow because the burden gets greater. As you just mentioned, then you lose 3 or 4 people off your PTA committee, and it's like, who now picks that up? So eventually you just go, that's too hard. Now you've lost 4 or 5 people, and before you know it, you have no PTA. So
but the
we
downstream
really,
is massive. The downstream is massive, mate, because if you forecast that forward, like we've done it. I sit in a strategic technological role on a day to day, and so I forecast that forward, and I look at it and go, to deliver the services we need to deliver, we need to either automate or find more volunteers. If the latter is the one that's going to be the most unlikely, then we've got no choice to automate, which means we need to spend money to build out systems and processes in a way that's conducive to a small organization. And when I say a small organization, we've got funds in the bank and that sort of stuff. But that means the downstream hit is that we're going to have to increase our user charges
yeah
to cater for the change in the delivery of service, right? Which is non-human based volunteering. So this is happening plethora across community. I see it every day in the conversations I have. It's a really big one. And I think we've got to stop losing sight that there needs to be a systematic approach to helping organizations be better. And that's the essence of Firefly. For the very, very simplest, how do we be better? How do we do it in constraint? That's probably the better statement. How do we do it in constraint? And so that leads into, some of those sneaky, cheeky little things we're trying to look at that might be really left of field for some organizations, but I think provide an opportunity in the long tail, which is if you're doing really good stuff and you position it appropriately, then you're probably more likely to be seen. And therefore, if you've got a community that cares, you're probably more likely to be funded and secured, right? And so we've been writing a playbook around that. What's that all about?
I have, yeah. Look, we're really excited now with the new app, and all those that are using it will see for the launch of the actual volunteers wallet, which contains the FLTs, the Firefly Light token, which is great. You get them every time you do an hour. On the other side of that, from the organisation's point of view, the ECT playbook gives us the opportunity to show all our Firefly members how easily and effectively that we can help stimulate their fundraising activities through the Illiterate Community Token, which again is only earned by volunteer activity or social impact, we like to call it, because our volunteers are the best measure of social impact. So I'm really excited to be able to launch that, to say, hey, listen, if you'd like some assistance in fundraising, there's a bit in there, Smithy, that we really like, and I talked to someone about it again the other day, called the double whammy. When you go to and for any sorry.
The double whammy, what was that TV show in the 80s or 90s? Big Bucks, no, I don't know. I've got off my side. It was whammy, something to do with whammies.
But the double whammy simply meant that, there's lots of organisations, and, we thank Bunnings for their support of being able to make available space and opportunity for organisations to sell sausages, the good old Bunnings sausage, to help fundraise for their organisation. And so the last time I was down there, there was 8 volunteers on this station one day, and they were doing an 8-hour stretch each, so 64 hours of volunteering time. And I said, do you have a mechanism in place that you can profit from the hours that you contribute when it comes to fundraising? They go, what are you talking about? I said, well, imagine this. Imagine that you go there and you cook your sausages, and let's say you make $2,000 for the day, and that's fantastic as far as fundraising. But you've also got, sorry?
On a good day.
on a good day, on a
2000,
non-rainy day.
2000 on a good day, mate.
Yeah. So I said, but the time that your volunteers are contributing to that activity without Firefly is unrewarded. With Firefly, we record those hours, and that's where now the organisations start to get what we call illiterate community tokens, and we've been developing a sponsorship model and a fundraising model that says if those illiterate community tokens that you receive by virtue of being there raise another $100, how bad is that for your organisation that you're profiting on both fronts, the time that you commit and the sausages that you sell, the double whammy. So yeah, pretty excited to get that one out, and pretty excited to launch the new model, and you'll get notification about when you can log into your admin portal of the app,
Coming.
and that's got a
Soon.
whole heap of
whole
other
heap of
things.
information around what you're doing, how you're performing, where your people are spending their time and their energy. Look, to be honest, we're moving to a world of tokenization.
Yeah.
For those that don't know out there in the audience, the concepts of tokenizing everything is coming, and and it's starting in a very little small space called blockchain and crypto. What does that mean to the rest of us? Probably not a lot, to be honest. Probably 90% of this audience wouldn't give two hoots about what that means. But when you start thinking about the ramifications of tokenizing large assets like buildings and sharing ownership of those assets, when you start thinking about tokenizing carbon footprints and energy footprints, and you start thinking about tokenizing, for us, volunteer time or social impact, we start to think about the value that creates in society. We have a tool by which we can measure that value, and then we can start to talk to that value back to people that really care for those changes. And so from my perspective, that's what these first steps are. We're not going straight to tokenization. We're providing a gateway to that by basically providing an alignment between hours of service, activities in community, to some way of measurement.
Yeah.
Now, let's be serious. We're going to have a tokenized engine by the end of it, Daryl. We know that to be true, but it's something that really makes sense, because the measurement piece is the bit, as communities, small communities, we often miss. And that links really tightly into some of the stories we've got in our latest release of our magazine, which we release every month, which has some great articles in it for volunteers to read and organisations to share. And that is this concept of having the ability to get to multiple entities, what we call the relay, so you can revamp your sponsorship models. Yep, it's using conversation and storytelling and information to be better at what you do. Alongside that really simple one, which is who liked what you were doing in the first place, and are you communicating to them in any way, shape, or form? Because my guess is probably not, for the most part. Probably not.
Yeah. Oh, look, and not to dwell on the, obviously I'm very privileged in working with you, buddy, because of your different degree of level of curiosity in innovation, and your ability to be able to adapt those new things, generative AI and ChatGPT and all these things that, and again, like you said, that we're going to get to a tokenized economy. We can argue about it, and as old dogs, you can say, oh no, it'll never happen. Yeah, the mobile phone was never going to happen either, but it did, and now we can't live without it.
That one.
Yeah, just a little bit. So in that space, I think the rekindling part, and certainly like with some of the work which we're excited about that you're doing with the PTA, if we can remove some administrative burden in the process by using Firefly as well, and you can rekindle the enthusiasm of the current volunteers that you've got, that goes a long way to that retention piece. We all like to do it because we like to be happy about what we're doing.
Yeah,
and we've been overburdened with legislation and compliance and all those issues. So if we can rekindle some enthusiasm of just come and do what you love to do for our organisation, likewise, and it's one of the reasons I'm excited about the ECT playbook. I know a lot of volunteers, and I speak to lots of them, as you know, they don't sign up to volunteer specifically to fundraise. They volunteer to provide the services that the organisation provides, to help other people in the community. So fundraising can be a real burdensome task for those people that aren't comfortable doing it. So again, if we can automate and we can assist in that environment, I think we can rekindle some of the enthusiasm which has led to volunteer burnout. And then if you can revise that, like some of the systems that you're starting to implement, like you said, to automate, helps revise how we can effectively operate our organisations with the cause in mind, rather than the obligation and the burden and the paperwork. And no one likes paperwork.
There's lots of stuff people don't like doing, mate. And we've chucked a couple of memes out recently which make me laugh about this concept of getting people to do things without giving them the way to do it. You know what I mean? Like just stand in the seat and get going. Like these are simple things. So if we can give them the methods and the tools to do their job better, to know what their job is, and to focus on jobs that are actually of an accretive approach, which is adding value as opposed to just admin and not huge value. What's funny though is we really do want to reach out to the audience and ask the big questions. There's millions of dollars that go to volunteering across Volunteer Australia and the state bodies. That is about identifying what policies that sit with government. It's a lot of politicizing, to be honest. We need to get into the get your hands dirty, get shit done, and design systems that add value. And for me, without casting stones, the way in which we double up, triple up, poorly administer, these are the things where the value is going to be created. Huge amounts of value in our communities. And that's going to be really important. But we want the volunteer communities to talk to us, to help us design out frameworks and value propositions inside a simple to use app in a world where I can, with the technology, tools and knowledge I've got, literally, guys, turn stuff around in days and weeks, not months and years, which is traditional in the software development space. And that leads us really strongly into focusing some of our attention to the large bodies in volunteer land that have these known cross-functional issues like surf lifesaving, massively important community organisation, Scouts and Guides, significantly important organisations that have got older systems, older approaches, and often run their own shit in isolation. But that's okay.
Well,
except 80% of the shit they run in isolation, everyone else does, right? And so if we can refine that piece and we can help, then I think our mission can be extremely satisfying, mate.
Look, and the other thing too, when we talk about next generational recruitment, Smithy, one of the things that excites me about working with Scouts and Guides is that their demographic is the next generation. So if we can help show and implement things that stimulate them, that not rekindle but kindle their enthusiasm to go over and above in that servitude, then that's a platform that we can share with other organisations that say, this is how we've created an environment that's exciting for the next generation that want to step into volunteering, instead of the what's in it for me generation. The how do I give to the community and feel happy about doing it. So there are a couple of really exciting models, and of course there's the other ones that you have another personal interest in that sit right in the middle of this crisis. Our CFAs and SESs that are 200,000 plus volunteers in that sector that are there to save our lives and to clean up these catastrophes. Yet we get that disparity between what is required from a funding point of view to make it functional to how desperate they are. And look, for no offense, and I don't want a short circuit or shortcut. Apparently my wife thinks that the Fireys calendar is a good deal. But it's those things that they do that.
Are you still allowed to do that, Daryl, in this society that we live in? Are you actually still allowed to do that?
Apparently so. If you're a fireman.
I'm tipping that they're slightly more dressed up than they used to be. Anyway, who knows? But I agree. We've lost some of the fun. That's true. But we've got to close because we've got a short window.
16 seconds to go. So
sum it up. What's the key takeaway? What is it? What do we need to take away from today's session, mate?
Oh, look, for me, Smithy, and certainly based on where we started relative to funding and the budget. I mean, there is no doubt that it's put shivers up the spine of a lot of people in the community already, and certainly our small local businesses that are already feeling the pain.
Yep.
If we can all share the love, and we want to support as consumers our local retailers and our local service providers, but if we can encourage all them, and certainly for our volunteer audience, like Courtney said, reach out and let us know if you've got some really good business people that you do business with every day, and you'd love to share your love of them with the other volunteer communities. Then we've got a model that actually can help collaborate all that sort of stuff. That's an effective, as we call it, the win-win-win. So my takeaway is let's not sit back and think about it's somebody else's responsibility to help continue the economics of the volunteer sector. That we're asked every day to make donations to here and donations to here, and donations are like the sign on the fence, buddy. Like they're wearing thin, and we're really particular about who we give our money to these days. But if as a volunteer and a consumer, I can give that to a business, that business is already saying thank you by contributing by way of funding and sponsorship, that's a perfect scenario that will help continue not only to maintain the funding requirements for the volunteer, but our aspirations to see that to start to grow to a prosperous economic sector, rather than one that, as we've talked about, is burdened with fundraising activities and selling sausages every weekend to try and help them provide services to people who need them.
And my key takeaway, mate, is we've been on this journey for a little while now. We're still small. We're in our infancy, but we punch well above our weight. And the one thing that I would love is, I know that there are probably some 60,000 Sues out there, and our Sue profile, which is our ideal customer profile, which is someone running an organisation responsible for the day-to-day, sitting there trying to get shit done, feeling like they're in an isolated box. Sometimes feeling like there's gaps because they haven't got the wide breadth of skills to run all of the functions. And I would love nothing more than to find a way to have conversations with those people on a more regular basis.
Sure.
To sit with them, understand their problems, their true, real problems, and collate those into a large list that we could then go away and solve and deliver back in a methodology that would be simple to use and would add value to the organisations that they serve. Is that a conference? Is that a webinar? I don't know. I'm running an AI webinar. If I get 20 people in the seat that come to that one, I will share my time, my energy, my passion, my knowledge, and I will extract those things that we think we can collectively contribute towards making a difference. And that's my promise. But I need 20 in a room. I'm not doing it with one-to-ones. I don't have the bandwidth and the time to do that.
And I was going to say, you'll see that in the newsletter. Again, Courtney's had 20 years plus in tech and innovation. I've spent a little bit of time dabbling around in the international sponsorship processes. So we thought, we can't help 227,000 organisations today in the Firefly model as we start to create sponsorship opportunities and fundraising. So we put together a couple of masterclasses. So if you'd like to know more about how generative AI and that tech can help you with that, relaying your message and revising your operation, book into Smithy. Trust me, I've spent a lot of time with the guy. It is well worth your while. And we've decided to put together the sponsorship masterclass as well.
And that in its own right is going to smash the lights out. Next time, we made a promise to ourselves, we're going to introduce and bring someone else into the conversation. We're going to try and do that more often. So if you're out there, you want to have a chat, you want to put your noggin in front of some people, it's a small audience now, but it's a growing audience. And from that perspective, we just like hearing great stories and sharing those stories of success and value. So thank you all. We're around. We're there for you. We're fighting in the trenches, and we talk about lighting the pathway forward. That was where Firefly's mission came from. We don't want to leave communities in the dark, and I think that's happening a little bit at the moment. So, on that note, mate, lovely speaking to you as always. Catch you next one.
Catching up, and for all of you, our Firefly members, thanks for being awesome, and we'll see you next month. Yeah,
will do. See you, mate.
Thanks, buddy.